Recently, Joe Rogan had a comedy special called Burn the Boats. And 4 words I've never heard in my life are, Joe Rogan is funny. So instead of me watching it and wasting my damn life, I decided to watch a video that explained it. And that's what we're going to do right now. Now, guys, if you're a Joe Rogan fan as a comedian, let me know in the comments and let me know why. If you're not, let me know that as well. If you've ever met him, I love stories like that. I respect him as a podcaster. This is all comedy-based conversation, okay? So this is going to break down the whole, scenario. And we're going to get right into it. So let me start off right here, and let's see.
Comedy is small, but only if you're mediocre. It's big. It's a vast, vast place.
It's vast, and it's also small because there's so few of us. And worldwide, we were talking about this the other day. There's maybe 500 of us.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how is he saying us with one of the greatest comedians sitting in front of him, Cat Williams, and you say us? Come on.
Us on the planet.
The nerve.
You got to be real generous and say 500 because it's really probably about 250.
Right.
But legit comics, guys you want to hang out with, guys who are fun.
So this past weekend on Saturday, Joe Rogan finally put out a new comedy special, which was actually live streamed on Netflix after 6 years of putting out no comedy besides whatever he did at the Comedy Mothership, which is his own club, of course. And although for the most part, people don't really consider him one of the best comedians to ever do it, on paper, he is one of the biggest comics at the moment, and he also does include himself in the conversation whenever they talk about comedians that are actually doing it. More specifically, when he says that he's part of the small group of 250 comedians that are doing it worldwide, which is a bad take in my opinion. But also, when I was younger, I was actually a fan of his stand-up comedy. I used to.
So would you say that he's a part of the 250 that they're talking about? I mean, these are prime comedians in the world that you're talking about. I mean, there's so many prime. And do you feel that he should be considered to be a part of that 250? Make sure y'all tell me what y'all talking about. Maybe start it off with 250 and tell me what your view is on that.
Enjoy the stoner takes, the political takes, and then some interesting commentary. And so because of that, even when it comes to Joe Rogan, there are standards of what you expect from his comedy, as weird as that sounds. And his last comedy special was absolutely trash and lazy compared to his previous work. And at some points, I was actually wondering if Joe Rogan was maybe trolling Netflix or trolling us, or maybe he forgot his material, panicked, and then started doing old jokes, because throughout the special, he actually retold at least 2 jokes word for word, and we have proof of that and the examples of that. However, there is also a chance that maybe because Joe Rogan has only been performing at the Comedy Mothership for the past 4 years or whatever, that he actually ruined his own stand-up comedy because he hasn't been following his own advice of going out on the road and trying out your set in front of new audiences that are not necessarily there to see you, because that is exactly what the Comedy Mothership is. Everyone that buys a ticket is just happy that they got a ticket, and if they get to see Joe Rogan, obviously they're going to be the nicest and the best audience ever.
Okay. I have to announce, because Netflix is making me announce this, that I have a Netflix special that's live Saturday night from San Antonio.
Oh.
So it's going to be live all over the world.
I'm going to see you tomorrow.
Oh, yay. Oh, yeah, we're coming.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've seen your set. It's really funny.
It's tight now.
Okay, see me, that's why I like being who I am. I'm honest. I'm not going to sit there and tell my damn friend he's funny if he's not funny. And if he's his friend, he need to stop lying. Ain't nobody about to go see no goddamn Joe Rogan tomorrow. Stop. You should have reminded him right there so you don't waste our time. Come on, man.
It's good. It's like I'm very happy with it.
How long has it been since you dropped the special?
6 years.
Wait, dude, seriously?
Yeah, I was ready to do one in August of 2020 when the shit went down. So when the shit went down with the COVID stuff, I was preparing. So that was like March, right? I was preparing to do one in August. And then I didn't do stand-up for like 8 months. And then we started doing stand-up out here again. And then I just started changing a lot of bits and moving stuff around. And I'm like, I don't want to do one right now. And I sort of just really enjoyed fucking around and just doing comedy for doing comedy, you know, and then doing it at the club And when the club opened, it was so much fun. It's just such a joy to be there all the time. It's like I get anxious to get back there. Like I can't wait.
I was there opening night.
Now, to be fair, I will point out some of the positive things about the special. For example, the choice of doing it live on Netflix was very impressive and very interesting because, you know, usually comedians will tape a show 3 or 4 times and then stitch it all together using the best parts. So again, doing it live and the fact that he actually performed it very, very well was, again, impressive. I believe he only messed up one word, like the whole time. He only messed up one word and it was very quick. And the whole time it was a flawless execution. He did get very loud at some points, but I think that was because the crowd was also getting loud. Or maybe that was just part of his material, which was not a good thing. Keep in mind, that was something that Whitney Cummings would get made fun of for because she would scream out her sets.
So hold on. Whitney Cummings, is she funny to y'all? I don't even think Whitney Cummings is funny. Like, I like savage comedians, like real have you holding your stomach comedians. Bill Burr, you know, Tom Segura, you know, Shane Gillis, you know, Dave Chappelle, obviously, Cat Williams. I mean, we're talking about the Anthony Jeselnik. I like savage comedy. So when they're talking about certain people, it's like Whitney Cummings. How does she come a part of the conversation? I've never, you know, and y'all can let me know in the comments if y'all feel different, but I never looked at her in a light like that.
And also the first 15 minutes of the special were pretty good. While I was watching it, I was actually thinking that it was consistent to what his previous comedy was like. But then the rest of the special, the rest of the hour is complete trash. It's all lazy. And again, at some point, he actually repeats word for word some of his old jokes, which is pretty wild. And before we go into the evidence or the examples of the jokes, some of the premises or a lot of the premises were also recycled premises. I couldn't find examples of them, but you know, they sounded very familiar, either something he said on a podcast or from another comedian, which is, that one's a little bit of a reach. But also a lot of the premises felt very outdated and not that original, in my opinion.
She goes, I can't believe you did it while I'm at home. And I'm like, I do it while you're sleeping right next to me. I do like this. I do tiny strokes to not wake the master. I put a glass of water on.
Here's the big deal. You did it while I'm at home.
I do it while you're sleeping right next to me. You're inches away. I pretend like I'm a little prisoner trying to fly on my way out of jail. Oh, tiny strokes as to not wake the master. But then she kept talking to us, you know? Like me and my friend are talking. She goes, sorry, boys. She only likes girls. And I got my own. And I'm like, well, now we're in a conversation. And I said, having a strap on and thinking it's a is like having a lighter and thinking you're a dragon.
And she yells over it at us. She goes, sorry, boys. She only likes girls. And I got my own. She says this to us.
Yeah.
So I go, where is it? And she goes, it's a strap on. And I said, having a strap on and thinking it's like having a lighter and thinking you're a dragon.
And look, I don't believe Joe Rogan has ever called himself the best
Bruh, was that funny, man? That wasn't funny, bruh.
comedian or anything like that. Most comics don't, unless it's Andrew Schultz or Tony Hinchcliffe. So I'm not comparing his comedy or his material to someone like Louis C.K. or Dave Chappelle. Of course not.
Louis C.K.
But again, even when it comes to Joe Rogan, there is a standard because Joe Rogan himself for the longest time now has been talking a lot about how much he works out on stage, about how much he writes, and how much he cares about the stand-up process. And back then it did make sense because once again, he had a lot of good premises, a lot of original thoughts, in my opinion, that were pretty funny. I liked a lot of the stoner takes about, you know, humans building rockets, going to other planets, and how that was the human race impregnating other planets and stuff like that. It was just interesting stoner takes. But also, according to Joe Rogan himself, one of the reasons why he opened his own club and started his own comedy scene in Austin was so that him and other comedians could have a place where they could perform comedy without having to worry about getting canceled or upsetting the club owners and then getting kicked out or losing the gig. And if Joe Rogan's new comedy special was the result of him taking advantage of that environment for like 4 years, I don't know if that's the best look. And by the way, don't forget to like the video. It helps out so much, and I really appreciate that.
So don't you think that by prepping your stand-up in those environments that it
Now, he's funny.
biases you towards a type of stand-up comedy that is limited?
No, because you can do that other stuff too. You could always perform to your crowd, and you could always expand on things to your crowd. But to really put it together without any fluff, without any nonsense, without being self-indulgent, with respecting the attention span of the audience that may or may not even be there to see you. Most likely is not. If you go to a comedy club and there's a large, if you go to the Comedy Store any night of the week, there's 15 plus people on the marquee or on the list, and the show starts at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. depending on the night, and it goes to 2 o'clock in the morning. And, you catch waves in there, and there's different types of comedy. And in that, you're going to deal with sometimes tired audiences, sometimes enthusiastic people. It's all different. It varies widely. And I think that in doing that, you cut all the nonsense out of your act, and you develop economy of words. You understand how to captivate people's attention and keep them engaged, and to respect their time, respect their point of view, respect that these people have an attention span. They want to be engaged in the best possible way that you can do it. And sometimes you develop that through these really difficult sets, or or distracted people and drunks and all that stuff. You can develop those qualities. You're always going to have your crowd.
Because I know other comics like Brian Simpson have done a comedy special from the Mothership, but I'm pretty sure he toured the whole country with that material before he recorded it. Because Brian Simpson is an actual great comedian, and when it comes to Joe Rogan, I don't know what the excuse is, because you might say, well, he had to do material for Netflix, and if that's the case, then why do Netflix? Because he doesn't need the exposure, he doesn't need the money, and if he actually had edgy material that he couldn't do on Netflix, why not put it out on his own website like Andrew Schultz did, or do something different instead of just putting out a lazy performance on a Netflix live comedy special.
That makes
and
sense.
Yes, I know a lot of people are comparing it to Brendan Schaub's The Gringo Papi, and even though I wouldn't go that far, I wouldn't be
I've never seen that, guys. Is that a recommend or a non-recommend?
surprised if Joe Rogan also quit comedy after this comedy special. However, I think a better comparison would be to Tom Segura's 69-minute comedy special, because we went over it when it first came out, because they both feel like if it was something that they had to do, but they
Tom Segura funny as hell. I like bikes. I like Tom Segura. I didn't see the 69-minute comedy special, but Tom Segura is funny to me.
didn't want to do it because it's not really that creative, and it's just pandering to their core audience, which is the podcast listeners.
Professional shit talkers are always going to be necessary. Like, to make sense of, and to give you some entertainment through all this, I require them. Look, if I wasn't a comic and I wasn't around guys like you and Tony and all the people that we're around with all the time, I don't know what I'd do. If I had to talk to normies all day about how things are and not laugh and not have fun, I'd be depressed. Mm-hmm. Like, we're always laughing and talking shit and having fun, even though things are crazy. Like, we are, 4 years away from artificial people telling us what to do? Well, we're in a weird time where everybody has a say, and I don't think everybody should be able to talk. It's like, everybody should be able to talk, but through social media, that gets just broadcast en masse to the world. And you get these groups of people that they huddle up in these echo chambers and they duke it out. Yeah, we say, in the comedy world, we say we're the last line of defense, because this is where the woke meets the wall. The woke meets the wall with stand-up comedy. You can't have woke comedy. It sucks. It's impossible. You can't always punch up and cater to everybody. And it's like, no, that's not what's funny. What's funny is the weird things that people do, and all of our hypocrisies and all of our contradictions and all the chaos about being a human being. And if you want to never make fun of marginalized groups, or never make fun of protected classes, or never make fun of anybody that's downtrodden or disassociated or disaffected, well, you can't do that. You can't. That's not stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy has to be everything. It has to be everything that's funny. regardless of whether or not it's socially acceptable to make fun of those things.
And once again, when it comes
That's
to the
true.
material and the comments about how it feels lazy, another example of that is how in one of his better jokes, which is right in the middle of the special, the premise was actually very interesting, and I don't think I've heard of it before. And here comes a spoiler in 3, 2, 1. But the bit is essentially about how he thought that Chinese people were savages because of a museum that they have in which they show unalived bodies in interesting positions doing daily activities, I guess, and it's all very creepy. And his take was that it would be an interesting way for, let's say, a political leader or someone in power to get rid of someone they don't like. And the joke was about how he could be a victim of that, and he would be in a museum with a microphone. However, if you look into that, and I could be wrong, double check this, but it's on Wikipedia and some websites, and we can take a look and actually see that it's called Bodies, the exhibition. And the company that is in charge of putting on these events or these exhibitions is actually an American company. And the controversy and the drama that happened with the bodies that Joe Rogan was referring to was about them not being able to confirm if the bodies that they were getting from China were actually unalived Chinese prisoners. And well, according to that information, Joe Rogan's bit doesn't really make that much sense. And I hate to be that guy because I'm not really into dissecting jokes, and I don't really care if a comedian lies, of course not. But this time it was so easy to look up, and it's so shocking that Joe Rogan couldn't just double check and that no one around him called him out on it. And also, a lot of Joe Rogan's comedy in the past was based on things that were true or real life things, politics, science, or whatever. And even though you didn't 100% trust him because he was talking about real life things, the jokes wouldn't make sense if he was just lying about everything. And in this case, it doesn't seem like he put a lot of thought into the joke.
Once your club opens up, though, talk about FOMO. But it's going to be a good thing.
It's going to be a good thing for comedy.
It's a 2-hour flight from LA. What are you guys crying about?
It's a good thing for comedy because we're just trying to help comedians get out there. We're trying to give people a great place to perform where they're supported and they're taken care of and make them feel comfortable, like you can have fun there. And it's an art form, man. It's an art form that doesn't get the respect of other art forms. It doesn't get the respect that music gets or that literature gets.
You don't think so now?
No, it doesn't.
I think some of you guys do.
The process doesn't get any respect. The process of developing as a musician, like if you're classically trained, right? You can go to schools, you can go to Juilliard, you can learn music, you learn how to read Beethoven, you learn how to compose, you learn how to, play ancient songs. You don't learn shit as a comedian. You figure it out all in yourself. It's all on you. And if you don't have good comedian friends, it's hard to know what the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do without these interviews with George Carlin when we looked into his writing process or without I would love to imagine if there was a 3-hour conversation with Richard Pryor about how he does stand up.
And by the way, according to Joe Rogan, the Comedy Mothership was supposed to be a place where comedians could pretty much say whatever they wanted without risk of getting canceled or someone potentially recording them and putting it online. And if the result was Joe Rogan's new comedy special, maybe that approach is not the best for comedy. And by the way, I'm sure you know this already, but based on what I've heard on the podcast and what I've seen online, the way that Joe Rogan runs the club, it's pretty much the most comfortable and the safest spots for a comedian to perform comedy at. And I'm actually curious what other comedians think about that, if it's good or bad. And I mean, I'm sure no one will ever say that it's a bad spot. But I wonder if long term, if it affects people's comedy or if it just sets unrealistic expectations. Because again, everyone that goes to the Mothership has been waiting for months, to get tickets, and they're just happy to be there. And they actually have a database of everyone that goes to the club with their face and information, it's pretty wild. And also, a few weeks ago, we went over Andrew Schultz's new material for the live tour. And on that video, we mentioned how if Joe Rogan and other comedians put out new comedy specials and they're trash, then there needs to be another label for podcast comedians. And sadly for Joe Rogan, that's the case because, that comedy special could have been a 1-hour podcast. And very similar to Brendan Schaub's, you'd be surprised. I'm surprised no one told Joe Rogan that his material was not the best. But either way, I recommend you go watch it so you can experience it for yourself. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel.
Let me know what y'all feel about this whole video, man. This is pretty deep. I mean, I never actually got into Joe Rogan. I mean, I'm hoping that you guys can give me some videos to probably watch from him, something that can inspire me. But I've never gotten into his comedy, ever, never. But him as a podcaster, I can always give him praise. You know, he opened up the door for that, and I give all praise for that. But we're here to talk about the comedy. I'm just not interested in his style of comedy. I haven't even heard anything funny or worth laughing. So y'all let me know what y'all feel about this video. If there's any other videos like this that can further explain, let me know. And we're on our way to get to 100,000 subs by the end of the year, so make sure you sub up, and I'll see you on the next one.